All right, the classical tragic hero. This is a term taken from Aristotle and a term from antiquity, 3,000 years ago. But it's a term that's timeless. You will see this archetype in movie characters, in books, and in television. But it's equally pronounced in real life, and that's the project that we're eventually going to do. The first thing you have to do is rethink your idea of a hero, and then rethink your idea of what makes something tragic. Most of the time, when we think of tragedy, we think of it as random. Somebody suddenly has an inoperable tumor, some kind of cancer that is terminal, and they find out quickly. The fate of the Bills player, Damar Hamlin. I just saw that game this weekend, completely out of nowhere, and absolutely tragic. But you're gonna see a different concept here, a kind of self-created tragedy. So we'll get to that in a minute. The hero part is a more difficult adjustment you'll have to make, because heroes you usually hold up as people who have some kind of moral legacy, who become they're larger than life figures, and Aristotle would agree with it. And the ones that you'll look at are larger than life figures. But typically, a hero does good, makes incredible sacrifices, gives up their life for some kind of cause. Martin Luther King, and Martin Luther King does die tragically. So when you look at it at first, you might think he'd be the ideal example. But I want you to look at these slides ahead, and you'll see he does not qualify. The first thing is that a tragic hero is great. And what makes them great is that bottom bullet point. They are like a tall tree in the forest, taller than the other trees. And at least to the Greeks, that made them a target from the gods. The gods saw them as people that reached heights that people shouldn't reach, and it would make them endure terrible tragedy like what Oedipus did, as a reminder to the other trees, the other people, that you're only a man, you're only a woman. So this is the first thing: is your figure achieves some kind of greatness. Now, in Greek literature, all of these characters are kings and queens, and I reviewed this first term as well. And Shakespeare makes most of his figures either royals or military figures. In your case, they'll just be famous, all right, and they can't be famous for something bad. They can't set out to be. A lot of dictators are not necessarily models of greatness. They might be high in stature, but they got or mob figures. They got to this position through illicit means. So once great and famous for being great, the tragic hero becomes equally famous for some terrible reversal or downfall. And I'm going to reference O.J. Simpson as I go through this, because to me he's kind of a model example, and someone can take that as a figure for the presentations, because O.J. Simpson was the first running back to run for 2,000 yards in a 14-game season. And he's an extraordinary, like, Bay Area figure. Grew up here in San Francisco, and was a Hall of Famer. And he has this incredible post sports career, making movies and being a pitch man, and he was very well off. Of course, he's equally famous for something else, the Brown Goldman trial, and I won't go too far into whether he's innocent or guilty. It's just the idea that this trial did expose a bunch of abuse. It did. He did end up getting sued for this, even though he was found not guilty. And his life was defined by that slow Bronco chase and all of the details. So your character has some sort of this tragic figure has some sort of reversal, some sort of downfall, a moment of pathos. Whoops. All right. Whoops, got to go back. Let's see. How can I go back? Sorry about that. All right. You might have guessed this from my OJ example. If he had a tragic flaw, it was hubris and uncontrollable jealousy. If you believed that he actually was guilty. The tragic flaw or hamartia is a quality that this person has that brought about their ruin. Almost every tragic figure has hubris, and this is the first test. This idea that it won't happen to me. I'm a rock and roll singer. I've reached incredible heights. Sure, I'll try heroin. It won't hurt me. And sometimes drugs and alcohol are the core of hubris. We're taking a different approach than NA or AA would take. The idea of like it being a disease or a higher power. The idea is instead, in this case, is it won't affect me. There's a kind of sense of ego. But there are a lot of tragic flaws. Greed can be a tragic flaw. I mentioned jealousy before. And there are many of these kind of qualities that you would think of as sins in the Greek context are just universal flaws, things that can happen to anybody. There's this moment of recognition. Real life figures don't always have this. Some people might publicly come out and admit to some wrongdoing, have a press conference or something like that, or they might write a memoir and express their feelings. Some of them just keep it inside, but to the figures, the literary figures, they realize, I did this to myself. This one is important from our perspective because a lot of tragic figures, they sort of tragic heroes get what they deserve. Really, they reach this incredible height. They become consumed by wealth, and it goes to their head. They think they're better than other people. They start committing crimes, and so it's not really a surprise that they suffer. And so we step away and we look at like what are the functions of this for an audience. In the press and social media, the experience is really extreme. It's like enjoying someone's fame and then enjoying someone's suffering. But in literature, it's deeper than that, more nuanced. And the idea is that you experience pity and fear. And now the first thing is that you have this idea that the magnitude of suffering makes you think, what a shame, what a waste. We look at the person years later and we think this could have turned out differently. And we also recognize the universality of the flaws itself. The idea that I can be jealous sometimes. I should beware of greed. This idea of hubris, that I'm so self-centered that I think I'm better than other people. This is the experience that the audience has with tragedy. All right, so I'm going to stop right there.